One of the most negative things that happened this week in regard to the Supreme Court was, of course, the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. And we saw in the wake of that gutting, immediately Texas and soon other states will be instituting voting ID laws and other regulations and restrictions on voting, obviously meant to target minorities and perhaps poor communities and things like that. So there is some debate now about a possible fix for the Voting Rights Act. We're going to discuss the possibility that that would pass in any form. But one interesting potential fix is that where the Supreme Court had a problem with certain states and certain districts being particularly targeted by the Voting Rights Act for what do you call it? The review of the voting restrictions before they can be put into law.
Section 5, yeah.
Exactly. So what if we were to just pass one that applies to all the states? And so this is an interesting theory that I hadn't previously thought about. What do you guys think about that?
One thing, I'll jump in. This is something that you hadn't previously thought about, but everyone who knew that this was at risk, that this ruling was a risk this week. And a lot of people, most people in the civil rights community were pessimistic about this one. I think they were optimistic about the
I think I was being naive when it came to that.
Well, yeah, maybe. And that's what happens with these courts sometimes. You just get blindsided, like it was with healthcare. I mean, there were people who were spending months and months and months preparing for what the response was to Obamacare and that ruling last year. When Roberts sided with the typically liberal side of the bench, everyone was shocked that they didn't have to do the work. This work has been prepared. These ideas about how to counter a bad ruling to Section 5 has been prepared. So first of all, I think the Congress is going to act. Nancy Pelosi has already said she's going to have what they're calling the John Lewis Civil Rights Act. They're attaching a name to it, a name that is associated with voting rights, probably more than anybody alive right now.
Yeah.
And then they're going to do this, John, which I think is something they've been preparing for a while. I didn't know the specifics of it either, but I do know they've been preparing responses to it. It's not a bad way to get around what they did in the court on Monday.
I would support a one-test-fits-all solution to this thing.
Yeah.
There's no there's historical reasons, obviously, to single out specific states for restricting votes, but whatever litmus test we provide, as long as it increases voter participation across race, demographics, I'd be in complete support.
Right, because they're not making any friends with the new immigrant population that's here. This is totally imbalanced legislation when you think about what the court did and then what the House is about to do on immigration. They don't jive at all, and that's one of the real problems with the Republican Party right now is how to get around all of these issues that have been familiar to them for a long time, which have been comfortable places to be. They're not so comfortable.
The whole premise behind this whole debate and argument and outrage is the accepted notion that the way to win elections is to reduce the amount of people who vote and participate in our democracy.
Yeah.
That, I think, should be hopefully something that we unpack. Why does
it? They're probably
it worked for them. It worked for them for a long time.
Exactly.
And so, old habits die hard, and I think that's what you're seeing right now. The other side of this with voting rights, and it speaks to what you were just saying, Dennis, is that you talk about the states that were under Section 5. You could be added to Section 5 too. It didn't just end in 1965. So there are districts around the country, not entire states, but there are districts under that the Justice Department was going to add to Section 5.
Right.
So where there are problems existing right now, so you put them in Section 5 and put the onus on them to prove to the government, to the Department of Justice, that they are making the proper accommodations to voters. So they have to do that too. They have to address those problems. And what John is talking about here is certainly a way of looking at it that would address the problems on a federal level, not just a state level.
And this also, you can correct me if I'm wrong, reduces the access to early voting, which corrects the problem of access to voters. Why are we voting on Tuesday to begin with? We're not an agrarian society anymore. We don't need to come in the harvest and then go to church on Sunday and travel all day
to market.
Have it be a holiday weekend. Set up some fireworks and everyone go vote.
And there are elections on Saturdays in this country. Louisiana does it. I think Hawaii does it.
Yeah, I think this is a reference to what you were just saying there. When Obama came into office and we had the period of Democratic control of the Senate and the House, the fact that they did not make a national voting holiday, that to me has always struck me as a dereliction of duty on the part of the Democrats.
Right.
That seems like it would be the easiest thing to pass.
But they don't want you to vote.
I understand that, but they would have to go on the Sunday shows
I think
and
it's more
say
than
why.
that. I think that it would, the filibuster and the issues that they take up in light of the filibuster, people say, he had the 2-house majority. It was not as
But I understand that, but make them filibuster that.
Yeah, well, if you
make them stand for 2 days to stop a national voting holiday.
But then it goes to what Dennis is saying, which not enough people in America would care about fighting that filibuster.
Then that's a depressing thought, I think.
Well,
it
is, because there are a lot of people in this country that don't want everybody to vote, who don't want to make voting easier.
I like to imagine that that's a minority, I guess.
The system's
Maybe I'm
constructed
wrong.
around decreasing the amount of voter participation and then managing those who participate.
No,
If
I totally agree
everyone
with you. That's
voted-
why I want to cast a spotlight on that. I don't want it to be just the system that we don't often see. I want them to have that debate.